All right, I'm back with another Destiny 2 video. I kind of forgot they were doing these little mini updates for Frontiers. I guess they are not aligned with the TWAB necessarily, they're just sort of showing up. This one is a new one about raids and dungeons specifically. I've not read it yet, but as I recall, people were looking at the roadmap and saying that in Frontiers we're getting one or two new raids and two new dungeons a year because they used the plural form of that when they were describing what's going on. I did not think that was true, and it turns out that is not true. They weren't going to do two full raids a year when they're only doing one raid, one new raid every 18 months now. So let's see what they're actually doing, which is not that. That's as much as I know. Welcome to one of many developer insight articles for Codename Frontiers. Over the weeks and months to come, we will be covering a lot of different topics about changes coming to Destiny 2 next year with these deeper dives. Check back with our Paving the Way for New Frontiers article for more information on our plans and an always updated list of these articles as they are published. This one is not that long, so let's talk about our plans for upcoming raid and dungeon content. Each expansion will continue to offer aspirational endgame content, either a new raid or new dungeon, with additional content coming in subsequent major updates. So that is one raid, one dungeon. TLDR, every year will kick off with a brand new raid as part of the first expansion. The following major update then expands this raid, adding new challenge, twists, and rewards. Interesting. The second expansion each year will deliver a new dungeon with an expanded reward offering. The fourth and final major update of the year will launch an event that leverages legacy raid and dungeon content along the lines of the Pantheon. If they are doing just one dungeon now, is there still a dungeon pass? I feel like there wouldn't be a dungeon pass anymore if it's just they're saying the expansion itself delivers a new dungeon. So I feel like the dungeon pass is no longer going to be a thing that happens. Endgame aspirational content, raids, and dungeons. New raids. Raids are a cornerstone of Destiny. They bring fire teams together to tackle overwhelming odds and create legendary moments with the world's first race. So, we're still kicking off every year with a new raid, starting with a new raid in codename Apollo that will stack up against the rich and varied history of experiences in this space. Raids will continue to offer a complete pool of exclusive weapons, armor, and exotics, and these can be obtained at higher tiers by taking on additional challenge. Ironically, if they're doing this, and if they're on an actual yearly schedule, this will be more raids, because if they're not doing, 18 months between expansions now, you could get 3 raids in 3 years rather than 2 raids in 3 years. So we'll see how that works out, but that's kind of an interesting aspect of this. Facing the tall task of following up on Salvation's Edge, we are exploring some unique twists on the raid format. This is one area where we will not be giving very much information about in the future, as we don't want to risk spoiling the day one experience for the raid race. Interesting. Raid feats. Our current iteration of master raids and challenges have followed a similar format for a few years now, so it's time to change the formula. Starting with Codename Apollo, new raids will support a raid-specific form of challenge customization, where players can select modifiers called feats. Feats will expose and enforce rules, such as time trials, contestant combatants, or other mode modifiers unique to the raid. The more feats active during a run, the better chance to earn higher tiered rewards. So they're not doing just raids and challenges anymore. They're integrating it with the system that he talked about with like Nightfalls and stuff, where you're picking kind of modifiers to increase your challenge level. Raid challenge update. In the first major update following Codename Apollo, the raid will receive a challenge update, adding new rewards, new mechanics, new feats, and potentially even new encounters. This update will kick off with a raid race event and be a venue for experienced raiders to further challenge their skills. So this is interesting. I saw a lot of people saying, like, okay, if there are 2 raids in a year, is it going to be one new raid and one reprised raid? No, it's not going to be that. Is it going to be one raid and then one, raid layer? No, it's not going to be that. But they say they may add new encounters to the raid. I don't know if that means subbing out an encounter, because just adding another encounter to the raid may be too long. Like you just add new encounters to a raid, that might not be the ideal thing if you want a raid to be a kind of a normal length, but I'm curious about how that will play out. But yes, it is one new raid, and like they may expand on that raid, but it is one new raid a year. In addition to the highest tiers of the raid rewards being available from these challenges, new and exclusive rewards will be added as well, including new weapons and a catalyst for the raid's exotic weapons. So over time, the major challenges or major updates will add other stuff to the raid over time rather than just it being static to give you a reason to keep running the raid. So that's good. New dungeons. Dungeons are an important part of our endgame activity ecosystem. They provide an accessible raid-like experience that feature unique encounters and mechanics that demand less social coordination and scheduling. So Codename Behemoth, the second expansion of the year, will create a brand new dungeon. Also, because the dungeon will be launching as part of our Codename Behemoth expansion, there will no longer be a separate dungeon key. Yes, that's what I figured. They can't, you can't get away with that when it's just one dungeon now. Additionally, the reward offering for new dungeons will be expanded to include full weapon and armor sets on par with raids. Oh, that's cool. So I guess that's one of the benefits of doing just one dungeon as opposed to two, is you can, actually make new weapons and armor sets as opposed to, having to do that twice to a certain extent, because dungeons usually have less weapons and sometimes armor. So that's good. And it's good they're not selling a dungeon key. This does, again, raise the question of how much is a year of Destiny Frontiers going to cost with no dungeon key, with free major updates, and 2 small expansions. Is it still going to be $100? Is it going to be less? I'm curious about that. New RAD event. Guessing that means raid event. I have massive sympathy for typos given my job, so no worries there. Into the Light introduced a raid boss rush called the Pantheon that put Fireteam's capabilities to the test. This event showed us that our community is hungry for new experiences that break out of the mold of our traditional raids and dungeons. So in the 4th major update of the year, we're planning another event that introduces novelty and allows our team to experiment with the legacy raid and dungeons offerings to create surprising aspirational challenges. We are in the very early design stages of this event, so more details as we develop them. That's cool. Everybody loved Pantheon, so bringing Pantheon back in some capacity is a good idea. I don't know if it will be as expansive as the normal Pantheon, but honestly, this is probably more interesting than Solstice or whatever is happening at that same time. This seems like a yearly event that I think people would look forward to more, so that seems like a good idea. Raids and dungeons in the core game. Dungeon content will feature prominently in the new portal as part of the Pinnacle Ops category. It's about the portal. Oops, nope. Didn't want to click on that. Several updated dungeons will be available to launch and play with the full challenge customization. So that is like adding modifiers and whatever to make it harder. Well, raid content will not be. How does this custom challenge customization work with Fireteam Finder? Like, everybody's going to have a different idea of what challenges they want to activate. So I'm a little confused on how that's going to work with the current system. While raid content will not initially be part of the portal categories, we are exploring ways to incorporate it in a future release. Until then, new and legacy raid content will continue to be available in their current location, along with their exclusive pool rewards. Okay, so this is kind of about what I expected in the end. If you're switching to quote, lesser scale content, I never believed they were going to be doing 2 new full raids a year. Maybe they could have done 2 dungeons and 1 raid, but again, every 18 months, right now we're doing 1 new raid and 2 dungeons and maybe a reprised raid. So 1 raid with maybe some additional encounters over time and 1 dungeon with more loot seems about on par with what I was expecting in the sort of scaled down era of Destiny. Not that that makes that good necessarily, but that's just sort of the way things are going to be now. We kind of have to expect less things across the board given the current situation. Whether that is sustainable for the game or player interest is another conversation, but that's the way things are, and here we are. The Pantheon coming back is a cool idea. I think a lot of people are going to be happy about that. I mean, they really implied it was going to come back at some point here, so it's not going to be quite what it was, but they're going to figure out ways to make that interesting, and that is probably a more unique and worthwhile event than we've seen from some of the casual holiday offerings they have, though I'm sure they're still going to have those too. As ever, I am very curious about the price of all this, given that there is no more separate dungeon pass, that there are no more paid seasons. There are still paid battle passes, like a more normal game that just sells the battle pass by itself. But maybe even they don't know how they're going to price this yet. But I'm certainly curious to find that out. So that's our new little update. I appreciate it. It's not like 10,000 words I have to read. So yeah, we will look forward to the next one. Who knows? 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Yeah, we'll see. And then we have the launch of the next episode. So that is going to be a whole other thing. And I think it's 2 weeks. So yeah, see you then. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.